I'm very cognizant of the self-talk. I'm a big believer in what are you telling yourself throughout a trade, you know? Um, and for me, here's the problem. You know what a lot of people and a lot of people I work with, their self-talk is this. Well, this is how much I'm up. This is how, oh, well, how much do I need to pay my rent tomorrow? Seriously, this is what happens to the people I'm trying to work with right now. And I work with them one on one and I don't know. Well, I remember what that was too. So I mean, intra trade, that when the time comes to sell, things happen. They will start saying stuff like that to themselves, or actually, I'm down 100 on the day for my last trade, and on this trade, I'm only up 75. Like these are the thoughts that people and the self speak people have during the trading day. That is so detrimental. Trading your P&L, um, trading your life, or trading money. If you need money, however much money you try to make like all of that stuff is what people are thinking about. My self talk intra trade and throughout the day needs to be okay, where's my stop? This is literally what I say to myself. Where's my stop? Where am I going to sell? So where am I take profits? Where's this chart? What day of the week is it? What's the catalyst? This is the self-talk, just what's happening with the chart and then objective price action. You know what I mean? My P&L I don't look at hardly ever. I really don't. Um, for each their own, but that's just what works for me. I know what the math is in my head. I don't need to see the red number when I take my position. I don't need it. You know what I mean? I know what my risk is. I know where my reward is it worth the squeeze? And then it's like, well, what have charts been doing lately? That's the self speak for me. And then when it comes to the win or loss, once I take my position, the self speak is all right, cut. This is literally my self speak. Cut the loss. So when I take a position, I open up a market stop or a market sell order for my entire position, depending on size, obviously, and liquidity. But most of the time, hopefully, I'm in something liquid and sized where I'm not affecting the stock. And if that's the case, I open up a stop. I open up a market sell order immediately because of the area I'm playing off of too. Um, and then I'll mitigate risk in different ways. But that's the first thing. That's the closest. Hopefully, I'm going to beat a risk on this entire trade is my entry. And then at that point, the second it moves away, I take the stop off. And the next thing is, all right, sell into target one. What's your first target? That's it. Is it going to get there? And I'm watching level two, I'm watching tape, and I'm just trying my best to objectively gauge price action. Then when the win comes or the loss, I know I've learned over time that no matter what, for me, the win is always underwhelming. Always. I just know for me, my biggest wins have been underwhelming. Um, the bigger losses have stung more than the big wins have been underwhelming for sure. They've hurt more. But then I realized this whole thing about dopamine. I was I watched this. There's a guy named Andrew Huberman. He's a neuroscientist from Stanford. He's awesome. And he does a lot of stuff on dopamine that made me realize that that's exactly what it is. We get the dopamine during the trade, and the hunt for the trade is what creates the dopamine. It's not the money you make at the end because they've been doing a lot of research on this. They used to think, it's the indulging in the prize at the end that creates dopamine, and the candy itself when you eat it that creates dopamine in your mind, but it's actually like the anticipation of it and the going to get it, right? Same with the drug addict. When I was I mean, and I can tell you, I'd get seriously, seriously sick if I didn't have opiates in my system um, when I was addicted to them. And and if I didn't have any, I would be so sick. We're talking like the flu times a million in your bones. It's kind of how it felt, like a really terrible feeling. But if I knew someone was on their way with some Percocet for me or some kind of drug for me, I'd get better immediately. You know, dopamine would surge through my system, and I didn't even have it yet. So it wasn't even just the amount of dopamine that was coming from the drugs themselves. And now what they've also learned about dopamine is that the higher you go, whatever the high is in terms of that you have a baseline dopamine level, when your dopamine spikes, for whatever reason, at some point it's going to go back down below base level an equal amount. So which totally accounts for so many events in life because it's the building, it's the building, it's the building, and then there's always a letdown at the end. Think about it. You get the promotion you've been working for literally ever. It's kind of exciting, but then the next day you feel shitty. Maybe it's not like the best feeling in the world. Um, Athletes who retire explains a lot. They all of a sudden their life purpose is gone, the dopamine's gone, and I believe this has happened to us traders every day, all day. This cycle of like, oh, I'm gonna, like And when you can really, really understand that no matter what, every trade becomes a letdown, it gets easier for me to just take profits. You know what I mean? And not be a greedy asshole. Because I know, guess what? It's still going to feel shitty if I top tick this thing later. Maybe that's the only way it won't feel completely shit. Right. So I've gotten over that. And the fact that, guess what? I'm going to sell some into price target one, hopefully some into two, some into three, and see where the chips fall where they may. And my job is to do my best to try to maximize that return from that process, you know? So, and kind of letting the chips fall where they may. So in that vein, you don't ever see me jumping for joy behind my computer. Those I have some live stuff on YouTube and stuff like that. If you watch any of the lives where I'm making some money or losing money, the loss, I always talk about the loss being the easiest trade for me because I just cut it and the trade's over. It's easy to me. I open that market order and then that's one click of my button and I'm not doing any work anymore. And I did my job still technically. It's when the trade starts working and I have to figure out how much to size out and where. And I know at the end of this, it's going to underwhelm me. So I have to deal with this. Does that make sense? So it's a
Absolutely.
weird kind of place I live in every day, but it's all self talk and it's all designed to make sure that I just sell where I'm supposed to. And I don't care about selling and taking a loss when I'm supposed to.